This plant is the most dramatic plant I've ever encountered. It's the biggest drama queen I've ever met in my entire life. Isn't it fantastic? You have to excuse my hair today. I slept on it wet, and so it is just wild and crazy, more so than most days. I also am operating with my camera slightly bent. The flip-out screen that shows me what is being filmed got bent slightly when it fell during the last video. If you didn't see that, stay till the very end. We got this greenhouse about a month ago and we put it up about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I will link that video up here so that you can see what the process was. But it was a pretty simple process to put up, and I've been very happy with how it's held up so far. Granted, we haven't had extreme winter weather. We sometimes do get snow and ice and sleet, but it isn't a very common occurrence for an extended period of time. It's usually a set event and then it's all over and it's just rain and wind. So I have high hopes that this will actually be sturdy enough and secure enough for multiple years of use. I also put in this small patio set, which I absolutely love, and it was the best decision I've made. It does take space away from the plants, but it gives me a space that I can just sit here and enjoy the area, and that to me is worth the extra space being taken up. So we'll just start at one end of the greenhouse, work our way around, and then do the center island last. At the very front of the greenhouse are the strawberries, or at least one pack of strawberries, one pot of strawberries that I pulled out of the garden bed earlier this year. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it up here. I pulled it out because we're reworking that entire area, and I'm also curious if that will allow me to have strawberries for the entirety of the year. Looks like that might just happen because that strawberry was not there when I put it in the pot. I also have some angelica that's right here in front of it. I have some euphorbia, some liatris that I'm still hoping to get in the ground next year. I have a non-invasive ivy. I have a coleus that has seen better days. It started to go downhill before I put it in the greenhouse. And I'm hoping maybe having it in the greenhouse it'll be a little bit happier. As you can see, it's in a very small pot, and I think that's contributed to it being very sensitive to the temperatures. This was a recent purchase in a plant sale. They were having 50% off at a local garden center. I think they were just making room for their holiday stuff, so Christmas trees and things like that. So they had everything 50% off, and I am a sucker for a plant sale, so I can't say no. So I picked this up, Dark Night Bluebeard, and I can't wait to get that in the garden. I think it'll be really pretty. It has these really pretty, delicate purple flowers that I think will be so pretty in the garden. Moving on down the line, we have our ornamental oregano, which is really, really pretty. It's got some brown to it because, again, these were all left out, and it was getting down into the mid to upper 30s, which isn't freezing, but these plants are susceptible to going dormant, and so I believe they started to go dormant before I started sticking them into the greenhouse, and so I'm hoping that maybe they'll come back now that they're a little more protected. Then we have some really beautiful mums. I picked these up again at a plant sale, the same one I got this from, the Bluebeard from, and I'm not putting them in the ground this year because it's just a little too close to when it might be vulnerable to being killed off because it gets too cold. Even mulching up the roots, I just don't want to chance it. So I'm going to overwinter them in this greenhouse and then put them in the ground later next year. I have my dianthus that looks like it's actually getting more blooms, so that's pretty exciting. We'll see if those actually pop up in this greenhouse, but that's something I'm very curious about, is what will continue to bloom and be active versus what will go dormant still now that it's protected. Lavender that needs to be deadheaded, but it just smells so good. I believe this is English lavender. We then have some creeping zinnia that has been a really pretty burst of color on the patio this whole season. I don't know if it's a annual or perennial. It says it's an annual, but I'm hoping if I can keep it alive, then it'll still be something I can use next year as well. I have some aster, which is super pretty. I love this purple color. It is just so unique and gorgeous, but I just love how this looks, and I love the full bloom of it. Some blooms are very sparse, and I really think those are beautiful because you have to look for them, and other blooms are just the entire plant, and it's so spectacular to see. I'm going to peek around this lemon tree, this Meyer lemon tree, to show you this spirea. I believe this is an autumn spirea. Look at that color that it gets in the autumn. Can't wait to get that in the ground. Then we have some coneflowers that are in desperate need of deadheading and trimming. and let me move you because I think this guy's in the way. So this was the camellia that I was talking about that I picked up again at that plant sale, and it had all of these blooms on it and it burst forth. As soon as I put it in the greenhouse, it has really just become a stunner. I don't know if you can see all these flowers, but oh, they're stunning. And I'm so happy. And I don't know, is this a typical fall bloomer? It's a winter bloomer. So I'm gonna need to make sure that it doesn't get too hot, because if it's a winter bloomer, it likely needs all the cooler weather to kind of activate the blooming. Down here we have a plumbago that has started to turn its autumn colors as well, but it still has a few blooms on there, and I think that could be just a little bit of interesting color to have that purple in with the maroon. This is a Shasta daisy that is done blooming for the year. And then back here we have a penstemon. What's it called? A cherry sparks beard tongue penstemon. All right. We also have another coneflower. It too has begun changing color for the season, but as you can see, it popped out another flower as soon as I brought it in. We have another spirea that has this beautiful autumn color that I'm so in love with autumn colors in the garden. I'm in love with summer colors. I'm in love with everything in the garden. But I can't wait to see when these get in the ground and they become more established and they grow larger, what these look like in the landscape when they're turning these colors, because it's so spectacular just in a pot that I can't imagine what it looks like out in the landscape. We then have a hydrangea that is a mystery variety because I bought it impulsively. That is the trend. I bought it impulsively many years ago, and I didn't have a place to put it because hydrangeas don't like full sun. Stuck it in this pot and it's done really well, but it turns out that it's one of the types of hydrangeas that bloom on last season's wood, and so when I trim it back every season because I forget about this, it never blooms the next year because it needs that old growth wood. So I am not going to prune it this year. I'm not going to trim it down. I'm going to let it be. And then hopefully next year I will get some blooms and it'll be easier for me to try and identify or at least narrow down what type of hydrangea it is. This is a mystery plant. Again, I don't know what it is. It was given to me by a friend, but it has these beautiful flowers. Let me see if I can. So I need to ask them what this is because it's really pretty. I mean, look at these autumn colors that were getting eaten before I moved them in. And these stunning flowers, I mean, just beautiful. We have a white-edged princess lily down here that has really just taken off quite a bit in the last month or two. We have a scarlet monkey flower that is definitely past its season. Is it an annual? I lost the tag. I don't know if it's an annual or perennial, but I believe it's a perennial, so it's just done for the season, but hopefully will come back. And then we have a lime coleus. I think it's electric lime coleus, and that too has struggled in the cold weather that we got before I brought it in, so I don't know if it will come back or not. I don't know. Are coleuses, are they perennial or annuals? I don't know. Electric lime coleus. We have a glory bower down here. That also has started to turn its autumn colors, which are very, very pretty. I love how muted they are, and they also combine with the green to just create this gorgeous palette. Gorgeous palette. We have another penstemon here, and then behind that we have a candy tuft. This is an angel rod fishing grass. We have Russian sage in the back. I am absolutely in love with this plant. It's my first year having it, and it's just, oh, everything about it is spectacular to me. The look, the smell, the feel, everything, and I'll be getting more of it in the future. We also have Gara here, which I think is really interesting because the leaves popping up kind of look like beet leaves, like little tiny beet leaves. And that was surprising to me. So we have some new fresh growth down here. We also have fresh growth up top. We have some calla lily up here. And then we also have, what is this? Bicolor barrenwort. Alrighty, bicolor barrenwort. Behind me, we have a lilac. I have these lilacs in the ground in this location before we put the greenhouse here, and so the greenhouse is just covering them as well, and they get the greenhouse treatment. Over here on this table, we have a Japanese anemone, which is still budding out and flowering, and I'm so excited about that. We have another plumbago back here, and again, it's turned into its fall colors now. We have a lobelia, which has turned super happy. And we have little tiny strawberry starts. So I did the large strawberry plants in the large containers, but then I also took small little runners and popped them into their individual containers, just in case the large containers didn't pan out for whatever reason. I wanted to make sure that we still had that strawberry variety that we could plant in our garden. This is a Daphne that I bought, oh gosh, probably when we first moved in. And again, it's one that likes more protected environments. It likes more shade than it would full sun, and all we have at the moment is full sun, although I'm working on it. We're getting that shade. So it has stayed in its pot and just been a balcony or patio plant for the last 3 to 4 years. Over here we have more lobelia, and then we also have, oh gosh, what's the name of this plant? This plant is the most dramatic plant I've ever encountered. This is a Salmon Shades New Guinea Impatiens, the biggest drama queen I've ever met in my entire life. It lived on the balcony up until being moved into the greenhouse, and if I did not water it like every 24 hours, now granted it's in a small pot, so this is part of the issue, but if I did not water it every 24 hours, it would just go completely limp and look like it was dying. And then the second I watered it, it'd give me a bloom. I've never met a plant that's more dramatic than that plant right there. Over here we have another plumbago, and we have a canna that is spent for the year but still has its foliage, and some columbines here that are very happy and doing wonderfully. This geranium organum is so stunning with its fall colors. It needs to be cleaned up because it does have some dead foliage that needs to just be plucked out, but the remaining foliage is just stunning. Let me see if I could show you. Look at that. Look at these stunning fall colors that we have going on here. I mean, the tips of red, just absolutely beautiful. And then you have something as stunning as this with all of the orange and red. Oh, love it. So we have our yarrow here. I don't think this is the wine yarrow. What yarrow is this? Song Siren Layla yarrow. And this had the pink blooms on it. The other yarrow that we have is a really beautiful wine colored bloom. So they're a very nice complement to each other. Down here, this little starter pack, it has some baby columbines as well as some bear's breeches in here. And then we have a purple agastache that just smells divine. It has been a bit neglected this year because it is in a pot, so I didn't deadhead it as much as I did the ones out front in our landscape. And then we have a Joe Pye weed. That is Joe Pye weed, right? Something I'm not even going to try and pronounce. And then I guess as we go down, I'll start doing the center plants as well. This black and bloom salvia that had started to turn for the fall. It started to get yellow and kind of start to die back, and then as soon as I put it in the greenhouse, it started to turn green again and bloom. I'm really excited to see what this means for the growing season if I get to enjoy flowers year round and just see this pop of color even in winter. We'll see. Because it's not heated, I don't have high hopes, but you never know. So next to the Joe Pye weed, we have this coreopsis. It too needs to be deadheaded and just tucked in a little bit for the fall, but it still has some really pretty blooms on it, so I'm going to selectively deadhead so I can continue to enjoy the blooms that I do have. Behind that we have another penstemon. This is a purple penstemon, Pike's Peak Purple Beard Tongue Penstemon, and it was really quite pretty. It was a very vivid purple. I'm always fascinated that there's such a variety in one particular color. You can have a purple flower, but within that family of colors you have a variety of, like, the black and bloom salvia has a deep purple that I think is really stunning, and then you have something like this in the agastache that's more of a almost a magenta, on the magenta side, and then you have something like the aster that's almost a little bit more pale. I love the variety even within one specific color group. It's really stunning. We have another glory bower here, another penstemon. This one was a pink penstemon. Behind that we have Japanese bloodgrass that I picked up at the plant sale, the same plant sale I got the camellia at and the asters and the mums. I also picked up this Japanese bloodgrass. And then hopping over to the middle really quick, we have another lilac that's in the ground. So again, this one is just being housed in the greenhouse because of its location. I didn't want to dig it up, so we just put the greenhouse over these 3 lilacs. And then this is a Meyer lemon tree, a dwarf Meyer lemon tree that does need to be pruned. As you can see, this guy is sending out some really leggy branches, and then you have the fruit just kind of hanging off of it, but he is doing pretty well so far. I might have to bring him into the house. That's what I've typically done every single winter because it just gets too cold and the fruits stall, and it takes me a year to get some lemons anyway, so I want to make sure that he continues to nurture the lemons that he has. But I'm going to see what he can do in the greenhouse as the temperatures cool down, because if you could stay in the greenhouse, that would be awesome since we have very little room in our house for additional plants. Behind him is another candy tuft. This is the other yarrow that I was referencing that has this really pretty wine color, and it actually has some flowers on there. I think it's actually called like a wine yarrow or summer wine. So yes, it is a wine yarrow. I then have some millet back here, which is another plant that I picked up at the recent sale. I have a fuchsia back here that I have nurtured repeatedly because it has died back every single winter. It completely dies back, and then the whole summer it struggles. Like I don't know what I'm doing wrong with this particular fuchsia. I'm hoping this year it will be nurtured a little bit better and then maybe grow a little bit more significantly in size so that it can flourish in the summer. Down here we have some iris that have really interesting variegated foliage. We have another couple of fuchsias. We have some wiregrass. We have a sedum. We have multiple types of sedums. We have a euonymus, a dusty miller, and a lamb's ear as well. Look at that color. Look at how striking that is amongst this sea of green, just this gray white in it. Oh, so pretty. Another fuchsia that has no blooms but is really healthy, so I'm hoping that it overwinters pretty well. Then we have a jasmine. I love the smell of jasmine. I know some people find it overwhelming, but I smell jasmine and it just makes me so happy. So they had this at the recent plant sale. I got it for 50% off and I couldn't pass up that deal. Then we have some more English lavender and another spirea. Again, look at that color. Oh, yes. A calla lily, some liatris that again is struggling mightily, so hopefully it will go on the ground and flourish. These are some green giant arborvitae that we cultivated from the ones we picked up earlier this summer. Then over here we have the other large pot of strawberries that I transplanted, and oh, look at that. I have more strawberries. This is thrilling. I'm so excited. Strawberries in mid-October. This is actually still in its little plant box from the sale that I bought it at, but I have more Japanese bloodgrass. I also have this switchgrass that I really liked the autumny feel to it, and I thought that would be a really pretty part of the garden. I picked up this really pretty maroon mums. Euphorbia, what kind of golden glory euphorbia, and I just love how dark these leaves are. How can you pass that up? This kind of texture and color in the garden is so stunning and so exciting. So I have those 3 new ones. Over here I have another struggling coleus. Again, it's in a small pot, so I think it just petered out in its small pot before I got to move it into the greenhouse. I don't know if it will revive itself or not. We'll find out. A fuchsia behind that, as well as a coneflower that is pretty done for the season, but we'll see if moving it into the greenhouse had any effect. And then various ground covers, including another non-invasive ivy. Thank you for joining me on this tour of my Amazon budget-friendly greenhouse. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button down below, subscribe, let me know in the comment section if you have a greenhouse and if that extends your growing season, how you like it, what kind of greenhouse. I love learning all about those things. This is my first greenhouse, but definitely not my last. The configuration in here may also be changing. I've thought about bringing down the white table that I've done a couple videos at. I'll post a picture up here so you can see. I've thought about bringing that table down here so that I could do some fall crafting outdoors but still protected from the rain, and I could film videos in here, and that would make it pretty functional and easy. But I'm not quite sure because I really like just lounging and having my time in the greenhouse all to myself. So we'll see if that happens. If it does, I'll keep you updated. Until next time, I will see you in the next video. Waiting for a plane. We do not live anywhere near an airport, but apparently we live in the path of one. It has a lot of weeds apparently because there's some clover.